If I told you there was something that you could do that can relieve stress, boost your happiness and satisfaction, enhance your creativity, and make you mentally resilient, and also give you a new purpose in life, would you do it? Of course you would. Today I'm going to talk to you about travel and why I believe it's one of the most fundamental things to a better society and a better life. I will go over the three main benefits of travel: the benefits it has to your overall well-being, the benefits it has to society, and the health benefits that are associated with travel. I will begin with a personal testimony of how travel has personally affected me. This past summer, I went to Pakistan, and before I went on my trip, I was sort of drifting through life with no real purpose or idea of what I wanted to do. And to be honest with you, I was pretty terrified to go on this trip. You see, Pakistan was in the middle of their presidential elections, and if you know anything about the Middle East, presidential elections aren't necessarily the best time to visit those countries. But throughout my trip, I was able to have some of the most amazing experiences. I met some of the nicest people that I've ever met in my whole life, and it changed my whole perspective on what the world was all about. Travel for me was able to give me something that I probably would have never found in any sort of gift shop or travel brochure. I found something that changed my life and changed my whole perspective. I went on to write several stories about my trip. One of my favorite clothing companies, Work Revival, published my story, and the newest edition of Inside Fullerton magazine, which is our school magazine that comes out next week, will feature my trip to Pakistan as their cover story. For me, if I didn't go on that trip, I truly believe that I would have never really found my purpose in life. I would have never found my true calling. And for that, travel has been one of the greatest gifts that I've ever received. In 2014, Travel News Daily took a poll of people who take vacation versus those who don't take vacations. And the results were pretty staggering. Among those who take vacations, 76% of them reported that they were either happy or extremely happy with their life, compared to only 43% among those who don't take vacations. That's an insane difference. You're nearly twice as happy if you go on vacation as opposed to if you didn't. Now, here's a statistic that might hit a little bit closer to home. According to the U.S. Travel Association, college students who travel abroad are nearly twice as likely to receive their college degree compared to those who don't. And they report higher earnings, reporting higher earnings of up to 40% compared to their homebound peers. That's also a pretty amazing statistic. Not only is travel beneficial to your well-being, but it's also beneficial to society, which takes me to my second point. According to the U.S. Travel Association, each U.S. household would have to pay an additional $1,000 in taxes if it wasn't for the revenue generated by the travel and tourism industry. And travel is an economic powerhouse, supporting more than 14.4 million jobs in the United States and generating $124 billion in revenue and taxes. That's also a pretty insane number. But let's step aside from the economic aspect and talk about it from more of a humanitarian. According to the U.S. Travel Association, or according to lifehack.org, when you travel, you're exposed to different cultures, and you realize that we all have similar needs. When you travel, you become more adept, and you're able to relate to people despite different backgrounds. That's also a pretty beautiful thing, because it benefits society because we're able to look at our similarities as opposed to our differences. This, in my opinion, contributes to hopefully the end of racism, sexism, and overall hate and prejudice in the world. If we're able to look at our similarities instead of our differences, we're able to relate to each other and build a better foundation. My main point is that when you travel, it benefits society because we're able to live in a little bit more harmony and connect with each other, and there'd be a lot less hate in the world. Also, we would all be happier and healthier people, which takes me to my third point: the health benefits associated with travel. According to the Framingham Heart Study, which was conducted in 1992, but is still considered the gold standard for long-term health benefits, they found that men who don't take vacation are 30% more likely to have a heart attack. And the number among women was even higher, 50%. Bridget Schultz, who is the director of the Better Life Lab at the New American Foundation, says that people who don't take time off are sicker, more stressed, less productive, more depressed, and more anxious than those who don't. I think that's pretty amazing to see as well. If you remember at the beginning of my speech, I said travel makes you more relaxed, it relieves stress, it makes you more productive, it makes you mentally resilient, and it gives you a little bit more creativity. I think it's clear to see that there's pretty great benefits of travel. The only downside is that we live in the United States. And the United States has something that isn't really too conducive to taking a lot of time off. According to CNN, travel or vacation days in the US are one of the lowest out of any other country. It's 0. Our neighbors down south in Mexico, they have 6 vacation days. And Denmark, France, and Austria all have 25 vacation days. The United Kingdom has 28 vacation days, mandatory. So the reality is we live in a country that isn't necessarily too conducive to taking time off or vacationing. But I think it's clear from the research that there is pretty immense health benefits that are associated with traveling and going out and exploring different cultures and societies. So what have we gone over today? I gave you a personal account of my travel story and how that's benefited me. We went over the well-being and the aspects of society and how it's benefited society not only from an economic standpoint, but also a humanitarian standpoint. And lastly, I went over the benefits that are associated with health and how travel benefits your overall health and makes you a better person. In conclusion, travel is one of the most fundamental things that we can all do for ourselves to improve society, to make everything better for the world in general. And I believe that if we all go out and travel and take a little bit of time off, it's going to be conducive to not only a better world, but a better life for each and every one of you. I hope that I was able to inspire you to take some time off this summer to go explore a different culture, a different society, and to hopefully, if you're looking for a new purpose or trying to reinvent yourself, it'll happen. And at the very least, it'll relieve some stress that may have been building up throughout the semester. I hope to see each and every one of you out there. Thank you.
All right, Trinity, what did you think?
Okay, I wanna talk about your movement first. You're swaying a lot, and your hands are moving a lot too, but they're not too distracting. At least to me. I don't know about anyone else. For the beginning of the speech, you stayed in the same spot for the most time, besides swaying, and then you started moving around. So I think you were just a little bit nervous. I really liked your attention device, and you gave a preview, which was good, but it was a bit quick. I liked your personal story, but I think it needed to be a little more specific. I like that you talked about how you had written your story and that it's been published and it's going to be published more, and that you found your true calling. You had really good statistics. Some of them were a bit confusing because you didn't really see the source. But overall, I thought it was a really good speech.
So you guys do remember that I'm always evaluating the oral evaluations also. Trinity hit 95% of what I was going to say. I mean, she picked out a lot of the same kinds of things that I was going to talk about. I like the introduction. I think it works pretty well. The first section where you talk about your personal experience, I'm anxious to hear a couple of those incidents that you talked about that made your trip so meaningful to you. You know, the people that you encountered, or a place that you saw, or a cultural element that you hadn't understood before and understood differently. I mean, I appreciate that you feel that way about those things, but I don't know why you feel that way. I'm not pulled into it the way that you have. And I'm sure that that's going to be in the stories that you've written. And I'm just thinking, well, why isn't it in the speech that you're giving? Because it seems like that would be a natural. I think your delivery is really solid, but Trinity picked out the one thing that I think is a little bit problematic. You do a lot of swaying while you're talking. Your feet aren't super active, but you are kind of constantly bobbing and weaving while you're presenting. And that might be one of those things that just requires you to pay a little bit more attention to what's going on. It wasn't horribly distracting, but it does make, like she said, I think that makes you look more nervous than you probably are. It exaggerates something that is probably not really there, just because you're doing it absent-mindedly, as opposed to it's really taken you over. So I think that's an easy fix for you in the future. Hopefully you'll watch those sorts of things. The one other thing that when she was talking about maybe some abstract information about sources, that kind of thing, the question I had, I know that you've got some data about what the number of dates are for vacations in different parts of the world. I need to know where that comes from, because when you said in the U.S. it's 0, I'm going, you cannot tell me that people in the United States don't take vacations or they don't accumulate vacation time. I think you're probably talking about what's required or something like that, or what's mandatory or something along those lines. That needs to be a little bit clearer, that we don't have mandatory vacation days. We have people earn vacation days, they earn days off, they accumulate time off, but do they use it? I think that's maybe another way that you could go at the same point without necessarily trying to make the comparison that you're making this way. And it would probably work a little bit more effectively. It's briefer than you might want to be. It's about a minute and 20 seconds short of the ideal minimum. So that's why I think you could add a couple of those stories early on and make it a little bit more intriguing. There's some platitude kind of stuff that you're talking about in there, which I think is probably true, but you got to sell us on it a little bit. And there are lots of people who are advocates of travel for exactly the purposes that you're talking about. The organizations that arrange foreign student exchanges, for instance, historical figures talk about the importance of travel. Literary figures have mentioned those kinds of things, and just a few, one or two pieces of information like that would just add some substance to your speech. So it's not that there's anything wrong with the speech; it's just talk about ways to make it better. All right, thank you.